You're listening to The Resentment Dumpers.
Hi.
Hey there. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm I don't even know. My head's spinning. We have been so busy here in Resentment Dumper Land.
That's right.
We have had so much going on with the book coming out and getting everything ready for the Kindle version,
Yeah.
which is exciting. I had another request for that today, by the way.
Well, we're working hard with our publisher to get that out. It's kind of a complex book. If anybody is taking a look at the Amazon, we actually have a look inside kind of thing, so it gives you a feel for what the content of the book, and it's not just a bunch of chapters and paragraphs. There's a lot of charts, a lot of
Yeah, and like I think I said something
things.
on Facebook about the fact that, the full experience of the book is probably best felt through actual physical pages, the actual, printed book because of the, very robust nature of the graphics and the charts and the tables and the images and everything. And I'm a big e-reader fan myself, but I understand its limitations. But hey, there's a lot of people that don't read books anymore unless they are on an e-reader.
Yeah.
So we're working to get the best possible version of that onto your favorite e-reader platform.
Yeah, we're trying to do it justice. So
Yeah.
it's going to take some time. We got a lot of diagrams, a lot of tables that need to be converted, that kind of thing. But it will be available soon.
Yeah, and I actually did get another request today um, for it, and I said, coming soon, coming very soon. But so anyway, last time we were here, we were talking about a lot of stuff, and one of the big things that came up was we were talking about the um, connection between resentment and trust. And I made the promise that we would talk about that again a little bit more, just because I think we kind of didn't do it justice on our last broadcast here because we just kind of skimmed over it. But um, it was really a kind of an eye-opening epiphany moment for me when I was reading the book the first time and when I was able to connect the dots that you connect very nicely um, by explaining the correlation, the relationship, the feel free to jump in here and help me out.
Yeah,
The very direct line between level of trust and level of resentment in a relationship.
yeah, we talked about a little before we started this podcast that we seem to have a total disconnect. That trust is a totally separate issue. That either you trust somebody or you don't, and it's just a matter of willing yourself enough to trust somebody enough to, and it's like, and what the book goes into, which is Curiosity Killed the Spat. I don't think we mentioned the title either in the last podcast, but in the book and in the Millfox method itself, it proposes that trust is a variable of the amount of resentment that you have with somebody. Now, you may not totally trust somebody because you don't know them as much. So there's a default amount of trust that you have about somebody. But once you get to know them, especially if they're a stranger, but once you get to know them, you trust them more. And but once you get to know somebody and resentment kicks in, then the trust level can go down
Yeah.
with the amount of resentment that you have.
And I, like I said, it was just, to me, they were just very separate things. But in my own experience, thinking back, I'm talking back a lot of years and a lot of different types of relationships and everything. Plus, people that I talk to, because I do talk to a lot of people about relationships these days, just to, you know, get get a feel for where people are, what they're thinking, and everything. And I hear that a lot. That the trust is gone. You'll hear the trust is just gone, like it just vanished. I used to trust, but I don't anymore. Why is that? Does it just, is it does it just vanish into vapors? No, this is where this was so you know a revelation to me, is understanding that as the resentment builds, the trust is level is going down because you've never cleaned that out. You've never, taken the steps, the interaction, the understanding the empathy, all the things that have to happen in order for resentment to be gone, that doesn't happen typically because people don't understand how to make that happen. And then the level of trust continues to drop while the level of resentment continues to build. And it's so like almost elementary once you understand it.
Once you get exposed to the idea and you actually think about it, you think about when you and your partner, or visualize how it would feel if you guys were actually to work through and resolve a conflict that has been on your plate for a long time. And you actually come to that fundamental reason for the resentment, the misunderstanding, the lack of information, which is a very big one, or what we talked about last time, jump to conclusions, and there's also false assumptions. You get to that primary reason, you feel that it's almost like it creates a vacuum, and you're suddenly drawn to the other person because you have taken away that thing that is brought, that keeps you guys apart. And when we talk about trust here, we could also put the same label like with we could say respect. You lose respect for somebody the more resentment that you have because you feel that they're doing things on purpose to hurt you or whatever. They don't know something or whatever the reason is for the resentment.
Right, and let's just take like a simple type example of something that might happen in any relationship anywhere. Like, for example, you ask someone to get something for you at the store, and they say, sure, no problem, no problem, that's cool. But in reality, they don't want to go pick out whatever it is that you've asked them to get. Say you've asked them to get something, a tool or something that they don't know anything about. And, they are feeling resentment because you've asked them to do this. And so the next time, they don't tell you about it, so it's still there.
Well, the conflict is right there that they don't feel close enough to tell you, apparently, that, okay, maybe you're the one that should get this. I got questions on this. Now, if you went to the grocery store, they picked me up a dozen eggs, then,
there's no question.
There's no question there. But,
they had to drive out of their way, or they're having to pick something out that they don't understand. So they're walking down the aisle and they're cussing up and down.
And I guess as long as they understand that you appreciate them doing that, then it's cool. It's like, understand I am going to have to go a couple miles out of my way to do this or that.
And I'm really not comfortable picking out a monkey wrench or
whatever
it is that you've asked them to get that they don't understand. But you see where if that communication doesn't take place, then the next time that happens, the trust is going to be low. Because the resentment is high, and then you've never resolved the issue, and it can come back who knows when later.
But again, it's the lack of communication, which is probably because of the lack of trust or whatever, or just
right, because
allowing things to build up, and that's just that's just one incident where it's where you allow something, you allow the resentment to build up because you don't take the steps, you don't say the questions, you don't voice your concerns, that kind of thing, or you don't get something from them saying that they really appreciate it. It's almost like a balancing thing. As long as if you get the feeling that they really appreciate what you're doing, and they know that you're taking time out of your day, you're going an extra couple miles, you're doing something above and beyond, as long as you feel that appreciation or whatever, it tends to balance it out. But if you don't, then you start feeling taken advantage of, that type of thing.
And the point I wanted to make about this too that's really important is that I'm picturing this scenario in a relationship where there already is resentment. So that's why I brought it up, because the trust to begin with is so low that they don't feel comfortable saying to you, look, I don't feel good about picking out this tool. I think you'd be better off doing it. Actually, I don't really want to drive out of my way. I've got other plans or whatever. Where that would, right then and there, that would have prevented that resentment from happening if you had that kind of relationship where the trust was low already. I mean, the trust was high and the resentment was low. So anyway, that's why I brought that up, because I think that's a really kind of a simple look at, how simple it would be to avoid that conflict to begin with if you're in that situation to begin with.
But the thing is, it starts at the beginning because the way we're taught about relationships is you want to avoid conflict. And that's a typical situation where you are going to have conflict, where somebody wants you to do something, you don't want to do it. That's conflict.
That's a good point.
And we are raised in our traditional relationship logic to avoid conflict at all and be nice and behave and
don't
things
rock
like
the
that.
boat. And
That's right. So our instinctive thing is to say, sure, I'll do it. That way there won't be any conflict, but there is conflict and there is that resentment that remains for doing it that way.
Yeah, and once you understand that, and once you break that pattern of the traditional relationship logic where conflict is bad, conflict means you're not nice, and all those things, and when in reality it's really much less nice to hold it in and then create more problems that snowball from holding things in. And what's really nice, quote unquote, air quotes, nice, is when you have so much trust with the person that you have absolutely no misgivings to say, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. I'm not really in the mood or whatever. And they understand that. And then it's gone. It's just poofs.
Yeah, again, it always reminds me of my accounting days when I would reconcile accounts, where if you're trying to be nice, well, the vendor says that we owe them $40,000, but our books say $35,000, but I don't want to make a conflict, so I'll just pay them $40,000. And it's like,
No.
yeah, that doesn't work in the
the owner of the company wouldn't really think that's very nice.
But that's exactly the logic that we have. We kind of think that we can just bury things and think that they'll just go away on their own.
Oh, and how, I'm just
and
saying.
They don't. And it's like, we may think that they do. That's the thing. The nice person, the nice, quotes, person that just says, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do this, I'll do that, or whatever. They think that that's not going to have any effect on how they feel about that person. And it does.
Yeah.
And it does.
But I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking, I'm thinking, how amazing would it be if, because I know there's a lot of people listening right now that are nodding their head that have been in that, I'm going to be the nice person and not say anything because, and, we don't stereotype by genders here at the Resentment Dumpers. However, I'm going to disclaim myself by saying that women are typically, not always, because I don't like to stereotype or generalize, but women often, how's that? Women often are raised as girls to not rock the boat, not cause problems, be nice, be quiet, be seen and not heard. Those kind of things are kind of drummed into your head, but what I was going to say, I keep getting off track because I get all excited and everything, but I was saying how wonderful and amazing the world would be if we looked at conflict as like reconciling the books. When you were talking about that, it was just hitting me like it's so cut and dried. It's so, because that's really what you're doing. You're reconciling.
That's exactly right. I mean, we even use the term irreconcilable differences or whatever. But if we actually look at any resentment as just accounts that aren't reconciled,
but aha, the difference is the egoity.
Well, yeah, of course.
And that's the part
that's the part that everybody leaves out, and what causes us to not want to confront that conflict is egoity, and that's our natural response. And but I shouldn't say as long as but whenever we fully understand that concept and respect it and understand what's going on, we can control that part of it, keep that tamed down while we work out.
And I'm thinking that doesn't happen with reconciling, but it really could. Like, think about it. You could go to your vendor and say, look, we're off by $40,000. And in reality, they could just flip out on you and have egoity responses. And because you're challenging the belief that they did it right or that they didn't make a mistake or whatever.
And that's usually the first response you have. It's like, you take pride in your work and you have your account. Let's say, okay, we owe you $35,000. And they come back saying, no, you owe us $40,000. The initial, maybe there's a little twinkling. It's like, well, they're wrong. I'm right, or whatever. Or you could just leave it open, which is what, if you want to keep your sanity doing that kind of a job, you just say, okay, well, let's just find out where this $5,000 is at. And, and you go back and forth. And I had that story in the book. But it is such a simplistic view of things when you don't typically have egoity involved. It becomes a piece of cake to resolve conflict.
You're right.
When egoity is not involved. Typically, egoity is not involved. It may be initially, very little. But when it's your job to work out, between a vendor or a client of what the account balance is, usually egos are not involved. It's just a matter of opening each other's books and find out what the difference is. And
I'm having another one of those moments, by the way. I love these podcasts because it's like I'm thinking about a previous job that I had where I did have to do reconciling every month, which I despise. And I know you and I have had this conversation where you love it because it's so you, it's so cut and dry.
I know I'm unusual, but I love reconciling.
And I used to literally wake up in a cold sweat the night before I had to have the talk where I had to reconcile this very, very large invoice with a very, very large customer. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars and stuff, and I hated it. And I think right now that I'm thinking about this in those terms is that because I wasn't nice. I couldn't be nice. It wasn't just everybody's happy. We had to argue through, literally, dispute. They called it our dispute conversation or whatever, and that's what it was. It was, I'm right, no, I'm right, okay, we agree, you're right, and then we would write it off, and that would be, resolved. But I'm just saying that because of my background of traditional relationship logic, I did not enjoy that. I felt like I was in a position I didn't like to be in. And I'm a pretty assertive person. I'm not a wallflower type, and I can stand up for myself and everything, but I did not enjoy that process. And it's just, while we're talking about this, I'm kind of understanding why. Because it did require confrontation. It required that uncomfortable feeling that we get when we have to deal with conflict. That I don't look at it that way anymore. I would be very different in that same role today because of what I know and because of the Mel Fox method.
Well, the way you're describing reconciliation, it's almost as if there's a little give and take there that you have to, But when I'm talking about reconciliation, it's just numbers.
Right. But no, this was probably more like conflict resolution than anything else that I can think of, in terms of, it really was a conflict resolution with every single item, because we had to understand each other's point of view, and then we would agree on what the resolution was. And it did often take that, I understand you, I see where you're coming from, I can step in your shoes, and yes, you're right, we need to pay that.
Yeah, that's more of what we consider conflict resolution.
Thinking of it's like a microcosm of conflict resolution, and I was very uncomfortable with that process because that's how I was.
But again, the more not set in stone kind of thing where you have to negotiate things.
Right.
Where if you're just reconciling accounts, you can easily just open it up and just go into the detail and find out what's missing from
that's
which
when
side,
you're doing it on your own kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting because the more where you don't have the rules set, or things can be negotiated, the more that egoity is going to be evoked. Right?
There was a lot of
because
egoity.
It becomes much more of you identify with what you did and everything, and you wanted to defend that and everything, and that's when egoity gets evoked and everything. So I can see where you be uncomfortable, doing that, because it reminds you of the typical egoity-filled, resentment where you want to either fight or fight.
I'm telling you, now that I think about it, this was back in 2002, so it was a while ago, but it is just hitting me right now like a ton of bricks that it was a total microcosm of conflict resolution going through that process every month. And I didn't like it. I did not like it. I hated it, as a matter of fact. And now that I understand things from the perspective of the Mel Fox method, and I can see why I didn't like it and why I was so uncomfortable with it, because I didn't like conflict ever, because I didn't understand what it meant to resolve conflict. I didn't understand the benefits of it and everything like I do now. So like I said, I think I would approach that kind of activity totally differently now. And I have already in my, personal, professional life, whatever, where I just look at it through different eyes, and I can't wait until everybody reads the book and can also apply the principles in their life, because it's so liberating and exciting to look at it through those eyes, where you don't dread it. You look at it as an opportunity.
But back to our original point that where trust is it's dependent upon the amount of resentment they have in a relationship. And it's like we don't typically view those things together. And just to reiterate, when you think about, when you resolve something, you just feel that vacuum or whatever, and you can just tell that the trust level has just gone up. And therefore, trust is not something that you have to strive to, it's like,
or will it to happen.
I'm gonna trust you more. You just have to trust me. Or, it's like, I'm going to trust you on this.
Well, what you hear a lot in terms of trust, you hear the word earn. You have to earn trust. You have to earn
just
it.
like you earn respect.
Right, exactly. But really, what does that mean? That means you have to keep your relationship resentment-free so that you do, quote, earn it.
Yeah, or find out the reasons why you don't trust that person, why you don't respect them, that type of thing. But that comes back to getting rid of the resentment. Once you get rid of the resentment, boom, that other side goes up, the fog kind of disappears, and you're able to see the other person and trust them instead of thinking that they're have one foot on the other side of the net or whatever.
Okay, so that is great. I mean, I really love having these discussions and being able to get this all out, and that was really helpful for me too, just to have those moments of understanding and everything. So we'll be back soon with more. What kind of stuff are we going to talk about next?
We'll see.
We'll leave it open. I won't make any promises this time, but we've got lots to talk about. So
it will probably involve Egoity because like the more I think about it, all this other stuff kind of just falls into place once you understand Egoity and you recognize its cause and purpose and things like that.
And in the meantime, if you haven't yet, get on Amazon.com. We've got links all over our Facebook page and in our newsletter, and everything for the book is for sale. We'd love for you to read it. And I think once you do that, these conversations will become even more meaningful. So we'll sign off for now, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We're still here.
We can't find the button.
Where's the button?
Okay, let's try this again. Okay, bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Resentment Dumpers. Check us out on the web at www.theresentmentdumpers.com.